Rainbow Family Life Stories by Jodey Bateman. Interviews with Rainbow Family of Living Light folks conducted between 1977 and 2008. Scanned in 2018. Jodey Bateman may be contacted on Facebook. 11.A.Star.Bearer. I Caught the Energy. Star-Bearer has tried several spiritual groups around the counterculture looking for a solution to emotional problems. The Christ family has had a powerful effect on him, although he left it. Star-Bearer. I was born in Council Bluffs, Iowa in 1949. My dad was an orphan at Boys Town, Nebraska. When he got older, he just worked at Boys Town. He was 18 and my mother was 17. I don't know what my dad is doing now. He divorced my mother when I was 5. He committed adultery. They were both Catholics at the time, and that was cause for divorce. I was exposed to Catholicism up till age 4 or 5. I stayed with some nuns. My mother remarried when I was 7. Her second husband has been my dad ever since. He's an engineer for North American Rockwell. We moved to Thousand Oaks, California when I was 8. Since then, I've had just a non-exposure to church. I got involved on my own with the Bible when I was a very young kid. When I was 14 years of age, I started going to the Presbyterian Church. When President Kennedy died, I was really going through an emotional thing. A lot of kids were tremendously affected by it. I went to my Bible to find out why. That was when I took responsibility for myself about religion. Also, it was caused by a moving family move to Garden Grove, California, an uprooting from my environment and my friends. So I withdrew into my Bible, an autistic religion. Also, all the guys around me were pairing off with girls, and I wasn't getting any. I was super uptight socially. I wouldn't go to dances. I wouldn't go with girls, very attached to mom, dad, and the family, very afraid of sex. When I got to college, UC Irvine, my major was pre-med biology, so evolution ended my religious belief. I saw religion as a shuck. I gave up religion and just became neurotic. I had an acute psychotic break my junior year. I was doing independent research with a psychophysiologist on the effects of bioenergetics on meditation. He wrote a book about different methods of meditation. He had so much charisma, I was enamored of him and wanted to get involved with him. So I thought up this project. I went into Samadhi for 2 months as a result of my research with this man, and I wasn't able to integrate the experience and started having seizures. I was in and out of a mental hospital twice in 5 years. I read Ram Dass's statement that 1 year of jail equals 2 in a mental hospital equals 5 years of college, and believe it. I found the mental hospital to be a very growing experience. I understood the only way I was going to be cured was not at the advice of the psychiatrists who would have me eat stelazine and thorazine for the rest of my life, but to break away from this at the risk of my mental balance. When I got out of the mental hospital, I did different types of jobs, like I drove a bread truck. In my spare time, I tried to learn as much as I could about spiritual things. One of the groups I learned from was called the Aquarian Educational Group. The leader was a Persian yogi called H. Saradanian, we called him Torkum. He would tell us various mystical stories surrounding the various holy books. Torkum was a small man who had spent his life seeking out oral teachings. One day he was demonstrating to us one of the stories out of the New Testament, the story of how the woman was healed by Christ by just touching his garment. He stood up as if he was Jesus, and explained to us that when the woman was healed, Jesus felt energy go out of him. Torkum showed us with some of his learning that Jesus had a scar in his left hand. In 1974, I was working as a service station attendant. I quit work as a result of my exposure to the Self-Realization Fellowship and yoga. I decided to go full bore into sadhana. I had the darshan, the chance to view many saints at this time like Lama Govinda and Guru Bawa and Werner Erhard. I moved in with Muktananda at the Oakland ashram for 8 months. I got on the staff of Muktananda World Tours, the central organization. Then I became disenchanted with the trip and split. I didn't want to be cooped up in the city. My temperament was not that of a monk. I did not want a guru, and Muktananda's thing was Siddha Yoga, total renunciation and surrender to the Guru. My philosophy is like Krishnamurti said, a religious man is one who is alone and prefers to be alone, and gurus are tyrants of the mind. After I left Muktananda, I was sitting next to a lagoon on the Pacific at the University of California at Santa Barbara, very peaceful, separated from the ocean by just a strip of land. There are a lot of trees and birds about. I went into a dream and saw Jesus descend from the sky and walk on the water. He was huge and gigantic, and his walk flowed with exquisite grace. There was beauty in every particle of his being. Wow! It was a transforming vision. And my life was laid out for me. The whole plan of my life was transmitted to me. I was told, "You are headed for Guru Dham." I moved to the Brotherhood of the Sun in the mountains behind Santa Barbara. It was headed by Norman Paulson, called Grandfather, who had been as a teenager in the monkery under Yogananda. My brother's roommate at UCSB was one of the first 6 brothers in the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood of the Sun probably has assets of over $4 million. They've got a juice bottling operation, a trucking line. I only lived with them for a month. In 1976, I tried being a guru. I was trucking with my friend Michael, and I thought of him as a novice. I tried to teach him, but we just decided to be friends and scrapped the whole thing. I thought to myself, well, we're all gurus, although some of us don't really know it. And I saw that it really didn't make any difference. It only made a difference to me. Michael had hung out with Lightning, Amen, and Gabriel and some of the heavier Christ family at Carpinteria, California. So I caught the Christ family energy through Michael, and it's with me to this day. Muktananda had the same power. It's just the matter of whether you want to be led around by that kind of thing or not. Michael told me that Lightning Amen, the Christ family founder, had a star in his left hand. I went crazy because I remembered Torquem's story that Jesus had a star in his left hand. I heard no one knew anything about lightning. Amen, except that in 1969 he walked into San Diego and met a dude and said, "Follow me." The dude's name was Peter, and that was the start of the Christ family. Michael and I were working on a ranch in Maricopa, California. We were going to see some Indians in Quebec, a congregation of tribes from all over. But I got into a fight with the kung fu expert ranch foreman, so I quit and left alone. I never got to Quebec. Instead, I went to Vancouver, then to Washington State. I was in Washington for 6 months. I wore the robe of the Christ family. I was a backslider a lot. I liked meat. I was never very faithful, even though I threw away my leather and left my backpack in the Goodwill hopper. I trucked with 2 Christ family brothers. I was as much an asshole as they were trying to lay my trip on people yelling, "No killing, no sex, and no materialism." I met the flowering tree near the Canadian border. They were at the Anta Karana gathering in Curlew, Washington. The Anta Karana Circle puts on their gathering and the barter fair. I went from there with the flowering tree to their home at Oroville, Washington. I let them know what my trip was. I said I wanted to meet Lightning Amen and write an article about him. I never got to meet him. At Flowering Tree, I thought of a name for Moonstone's new baby while looking at the sky one night. While looking at the Big Dipper, the name Star-Bearer came to mind. And Moonstone said she had already decided on the name Little Minnow, but his name now is Dancing Johnny. I wanted a new home. I left Flowering Tree because I didn't want to spend the winter there. Also, I got in an argument with one of the sisters, and at council some of them said they didn't want me to stay. I decided I wanted to be a Christ family brother without the robes and taboos. The Christ family were just parrots for Lightning Amen. They always are saying the same thing, and it's just boring. I'm more intelligent than any of them I've ever met. They're just good at playing tapes they've got in their heads. And I wasn't going to be stuck with anyone else's bullshit. I still think Lightning Amen is doing a lot of good for this planet, but I think there are many higher than he is. I'd like to see a lot of people join the Christ family. It's a stage some people have to go through. I left Washington and went to Santa Barbara. While I was there, Ram Dass came to speak at the university. Some Christ family came up to the front of the auditorium and started shaking their fingers at him and hollering, "Ram Dass, you're telling people that sex is okay. How can you tell a lie like that?" And Ram Dass said, it would be respectful to let some other people have a chance to talk, and they wouldn't, so the sponsors had them thrown out. Well, Lightning Amen says, freak freely, and that's what they do. I didn't know any of this at the time because I had gone up and touched Ram Dass's feet before the meeting began, and I got blissed out. I had to get out of the place. I went to a field in back of the auditorium and crashed for a couple of hours. Later I heard friends of mine talking about how the Christ family had acted. Amen. Oh hi, California is my home now. The Indians in the old days would never carry weapons there. I live in a place called Oshai that was a sacred Indian healing ground. Theosophists like Annie Besant settled there and a lot of heavy people like Aldous Huxley. There is supposed to be an angel or deva as they say in India guarding the valley. He's on top of Mount Tapatopa. I always wanted to make a pilgrimage there. In summer 1978, I went to the Rainbow Gathering in Oregon. When I got there, I heard the Spirit talking to me, saying to take the name Star-Bearer. The name I thought of for Moonstone's baby. A lot of people since then have called me Star-Bearer. I feel strange when they call me that because of Jesus having a star in his hand. I feel the light focused. I'm just another servant. I met Love Israel and his group at the gathering. I told them I was going to be a part of them, but I just shined it on. I decided they were using beautiful women to recruit. But you have to wait before you can get. I had a meditation 2 months ago in San Diego, where I saw a really vivid picture of the sun with a surfboard across it, and I started surfing after that. A few weeks ago, I had a thing with a girl and had to give up surfing for a while. I feel physically drained after sex. Now I'm here at the Rainbow Family Peace Camp in Arizona. I came because I wanted a place to hang out. Also, it's source material for a book about and for Rainbow family people. I've been really interested in gurus and the authority trips people lay on each other. When I came to the Rainbow Tribe, I saw a lot of brother and sister gurus, and no one was laying a trip on anybody. It was all just, let it be. I came to the Rainbow family because I felt it would be a space where I wouldn't be judged. In January 1979, Star-Bearer was in Tucson and told me what had happened since we had last talked. Star-Bearer. The peace camp was just sitting around hanging out, a bunch of lazy people that didn't want to work. I was staying in a cave there getting into myself. It seemed like a good experience for me. I do feel a lot more together since the peace camp. I've been away from the Rainbow at the peace camp long enough to see that they were into a lot of hot shit acts that I don't want to be a part of, like bragging about all the time they've spent in jail or traveling across country in a car, siphoning gas out of other people's engines. I love the Rainbows, but these trips seem so superficial. I want to meet the more together people in the family. I wired my parents for some of my money and bought the car of this brother at the peace camp named Blue Jay. I offered him $150 and he would only take $125. So I went to Eden Hot Springs and I did some plumbing for the people there. And then at Eden, I heard about the Peyote Way Church of God, and I drove out to Klondike, Arizona to be ordained by Mana, the leader of the church. Mana is Chicano. He's been in jail in Mexico and Canada. He's doing a political thing mostly, trying to get people ordained in the Native American church so they can obtain and have peyote legally as a sacrament. He knows piety is a teacher, and he just wants to get piety into people's hands because he knows it will teach them and get them out of the city and into the country. I did my first peyote at the Peyote Way Church. I was heading back to California to get back together with my girlfriend in Berkeley. We wanted to live with each other. We had talked about getting money together and going to India. She had spent a year there. I got as far as Tucson and my car broke down. Mana had told me to get in touch with Smiling Eagle as a possible person to do a Peyote run to Texas. I got in touch with him and talked with him about going to Texas, but I ended up sounding him out about a job so I could get some money. He said I could have a job moving rocks on his property. I ended up moving with him and his wife and doing paneling in their house for them. I ended up doing a lot of mushrooms at Smiling Eagles and Peyote and the best pot I've ever smoked, just getting stoned for a couple of months. I learned the Sioux pipe ritual from him and did some Peyote sweats. As a result of being with Mana and Smiling Eagle, I became interested in Indian rituals. While I was with Smiling Eagle, I went with him to visit Andrew Weil, a Harvard MD, who did his internship in San Francisco in the Flower Child Haight-Ashbury days and became a drug expert. He was a good example to me of people who had their shit together. We did a pipe ceremony with him. He talked with me about his visit to the Amazon to the Indians doing their drug trips there. I got my head together a lot as a result of peyote and mushrooms. I had an experience of mescalito in the canyon at the peyote sweat. I stayed up all night in the canyon alone. Mescalito taught me a lesson on how I ought to rely on myself and not depend on handouts from other brothers. I moved out around Christmas 1978 and got a job serving beer and making sandwiches in Tucson. Started working on my car. A sister tells me I seem a lot more mellow now. It was the peyote and all the drugs I took, also getting back into meditation, that's helped me to focus my energy and get my own movie together. I don't have to be a clown anymore or be hip or do some kind of hot shit act because I need some place to stay to get food. Now I'm trying to meditate some every day. I'm getting away from drugs, but I don't want to get away from them totally. I still haven't got over the Christ family yet. I still feel wrong every time I do a job for pay. I keep thinking I ought to take my shoes off and go barefoot.